You are about to discover how to reclaim control over your mind and silence the dictatorship of what if, transforming anxiety into an unshakable presence through spiritual awakening. I will show you the path to inner freedom in less than 15 minutes. Every anticipatory thought that you fail to filter today is one more brick in the invisible prison that is exhausting your soul and draining your vital energy. Anchored in the ancient wisdom of Stoic masters and the strength of ancestral African traditions, this channel is your safe harbor for a spirituality that truly sets you free. And before you think that your mind won't stop, or that you can't meditate, know that peace doesn't come from silencing your thoughts, but from ceasing to obey them. By the end of this video, I will share an ancestral 3-minute practice for you to anchor your essence in the now and save your emotional health. Life is not a straight ladder. It is a river that meanders to teach us gentleness. But often, instead of flowing with the current, we are drowning in a sea of assumptions about tomorrow. Why do we insist on suffering over scenarios created by our imagination, but never presented by reality? If you feel a weariness that sleep cannot cure, understand, your soul is not sick. It is simply exhausted from fighting invisible ghosts. You are not broken. You are transitioning into a new stage of self-knowledge and personal development. Today, we will look to Stoicism and African wisdom for the necessary filter to let go of what does not belong to us and embrace the only real thing, this moment. We are going to disobey the mind to finally save our essence. Seneca already warned us. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. This is the dictatorship of what if. When you project yourself into a catastrophic future, you abandon the only place where you have power, the present. In African traditions, time is not just a line that slips away, but a circle that connects us to our ancestors and the earth. When you live in the what if, you break this vital connection. You become an exile from your own life. The awakening of consciousness begins when we realize that the mind is an excellent servant, but a cruel tyrant if we let it rule. As the anchor phrase says, not all pain is a punishment. Some are invitations for you to return home, to the inside of yourself. Imagine the mind as sacred soil that, if not cultivated with presence, becomes fertile ground for the weeds of anxiety. In the concept of Sankofa, we learn that looking back should only serve to rescue what is useful, and not to chain us to fear. The tyranny of the imagination dissolves when you decide that your peace is worth more than the validation of scenarios that don't even exist, reclaiming the scepter of your inner authority. But this exile from oneself, provoked by imaginary scenarios, exacts a high and silent price that manifests in the weight of your eyes at dawn. It is here that we realize there is a type of exhaustion that does not disappear by closing our eyelids. There are days when we wake up more tired than when we went to sleep. This is the weight of a mind that has become its own prison. We produce about 70,000 thoughts daily, and most of them are sterile noise that leads us nowhere. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote to himself that the happiness of life depends on the quality of our thoughts. If your mind is saturated with the opinions and judgments of others, your biology will respond to that load. Your body hears everything your soul whispers. Mental exhaustion is the sign that you are carrying the world on your back, when the universe asks only that you walk with it. Here, spirituality is not a performance. It is relief and emotional truth. This depletion is not physical, it is vibrational. It is the result of a soul trying to keep heavy mental structures standing. In the African worldview, vital force, or Axe, needs to circulate for there to be health. When you lock yourself in the labyrinth of self-demand, the Axe stagnates and the body becomes ill. Recognizing this tiredness is the first step toward detachment, allowing the mind to rest in the lap of silent presence. If this weariness is born from the stagnation of our vital force, the cure can only come from the movement of opening our hands. For the Axe to circulate again, we need to learn to distinguish the burden that is ours from the one we only think is ours. This distinction is born from a simple, yet devastating question for the ego. Epictetus gifted us with the most potent tool of freedom, the dichotomy of control. Ask yourself, is this up to me? If the answer is no, letting go is not giving up, it is spiritual intelligence. In the African concept of Ubuntu, I am because we are, we understand that our peace is linked to balance with the whole. Letting go of the invisible is ceasing the attempt to control what others think or what fate holds. Letting go is like opening your hands from an invisible knot that bound the heart. When you apply this filter, mental rumination loses its fuel. You stop spending your sacred energy on shadows and start investing it in your inner transformation. Practicing the Stoic filter is like sifting the water of a river. You let the mud wash away and retain only what is essential for your journey. By integrating Ubuntu, we realize that by letting go of our need for control, we also release those around us from our unrealistic expectations. This detachment does not make us cold, but rather deeply human and ethical, as we begin to act where we truly make a difference. However, as we let go of distractions and the sieves of control, we are suddenly left alone with what we fear most. Without the noise of worries to distract us, what remains is a void that most of us try to fill at any cost. It is this discomfort that makes us flee from the only place where life happens. Blaise Pascal used to say that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Why do we flee from silence through excessive thinking? Because silence is a mirror. In silence, masks fall and we are confronted with our own truth. But silence is not absence. It is presence without noise. It is the fertile void, the womb of the sacred where the soul regenerates. In ancestral practices, silence is where we hear the voice of the earth and of those who came before us. Do not fear the void. It is there that your spiritual awakening takes deep roots. We flee to the noise of thoughts because we were taught that utility lies only in external action, but the true architecture of being is made in the invisible. Silence is the temple where presence becomes palpable and the ego loses its imposing voice. When you stop running, you discover that what you called loneliness is, in fact, a sacred encounter with your own soul. As we finally decide not to flee this sacred encounter in silence anymore, we begin to notice something extraordinary. Thoughts continue to arise, but something in us remains motionless. It is in this moment of stillness that the great illusion dissolves and you perceive, for the first time, that there is a safe distance between who you are and what you think. This is the fundamental distinction for your freedom. There is the thought, and there is the one who observes the thought. You are not the radio playing in your head. You are the listener. When you identify with every worry, you become the worry. But by stepping back and observing, you create room to maneuver. African philosophy teaches us that we are part of a larger flow. We are the consciousness experiencing life. Disobeying the mind is not fighting it, but ceasing to be an obedient subject of its automatic whims. Do not run after the light. Become the lamp lit in the dark. This is the path of real presence and the meaning of life. The observer is like the mountain that watches the clouds pass by without being moved by them. By awakening this perception, you understand that the opinions and fears the mind screams are just waves on the surface, while your essence remains in the deep, calm ocean. This disidentification is the greatest act of spiritual rebellion. You reclaim the dignity of being who you truly are, far beyond the mental narratives that tried to define you. By occupying this place of the observer, the mountain that you are becomes unshakable in the face of mental storms. And it is from this center of power that we can, finally, cross the final portal of our journey, transforming every pain and every weariness into a step toward the sovereignty of the soul. We have reached the portal of transformation. The disease of the modern soul is this labyrinth of opinions that create our pain, but the thread of Ariadne to exit it is your own conscious breath. Now, wherever you are, align your spine. Feel your bare feet touching the ground, like roots seeking the strength of the earth. Inhale deeply, bringing the word presence inside. As you exhale, silently release the word surrender. Notice that, in this exact second, nothing is missing. You are safe. You are here. And what if the pain you feel today is, in fact, the portal to the sovereign life you have always sought? And what if your weariness is just the final invitation for you to finally let go of what was never yours? If these words touched something inside of you, perhaps it is time to take one more step on this path of reuniting with your inner truth. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue receiving content that nourishes the soul with presence and authenticity. Share in the comments what resonated with your heart. Your story might be the mirror someone else needed to find. If you seek a safe harbor, know that our community is the sanctuary where fertile silence is shared and deepened. Check out the channel's posts. And to continue expanding this field of presence, we suggest the video pinned in the card. May it be a source of inspiration on your journey. Peace and light.